Get in, buckle up, and come for a ride with the Hoonatics. Cars, bikes, and anything else with an engine in it. Let's go.
G'day. All right, today's topic, Jason, is in no particular order. No, well, the camera's there, but no particular order, is movie cars.
Outstanding. Oh, sorry. Great Scott!
We're not. So we're not doing a. We talked about this in length for about 48 seconds, and we were talking about maybe we'll do like a top 20, top 30, stuff like that. But then, controversially, if we did a top 20. Then we're going to piss somebody off because they're going to
you didn't include this car and this one had a box office
100%. So we went through and had a look and stole some lists off the internet and stuff like that, and just some cool cars that we wanted to talk about. Now we give ourselves roughly an hour to do this podcast, so if we do 20 cars, 60 minutes, 20 cars, that's 3 minutes per car, discounting the fact that you talk a whole lot of crap. That probably leads us into about 2 minutes per car.
If you keep speaking in a monotone voice like that, you will also slow the podcast
thank you,
down.
Jason. And
right.
But what we've done as well is our wonderful producer, Rory, is the man behind Podbooth and the man behind Movie Magoos and Popcorn Rocket with his daughter.
Popcorn Rocket, the Popcorn Rocket reviews the podcast.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
currently
Rory,
trending on iTunes.
Rory
this week, you're going to take on the persona of Paul Schaefer.
Yes.
And do you know Paul Schaefer is from the
Saturday
Tonight
Night
Show
Live.
band Special Comments? Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I can't play piano and do little riffs on the side,
Reggie from the James Corden show.
Yes. That's
Just
probably
a lighter-
more applicable,
a
isn't
lot
it?
of shade.
Yeah.
I'm also doing a live vision switch for anyone who's confused by why I suddenly stopped talking or I'm not making eye contact with anyone
He's
properly.
a man of many talents.
I'm cutting from angle to angle to angle
And
live.
So with all that in place, like Rory is a massive movie nerd, and if you're seeing the picture now, he said he's going to take it off because it's a bit scratchy and a bit noisy. He is actually wearing his life preserver, Marty McFly spec.
This is the one.
What'd you do? Just jump ship?
And I don't know if we can get this on camera.
Yeah,
or not,
go on,
but
do it.
Show us a tattoo.
Go on,
Oh,
show
the
us
tattoo.
Yeah,
Show us the
This
tattoo.
is the lightning bolt. You can see there.
Yeah, pull it up.
Going up to the 88.
88 miles an hour.
88 miles per hour. That's my Back to the Future
gigawatts.
tattoo. Right there.
It's outstanding.
Qualify me for this episode.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You've got the picture of Biff Tannen on your back, though, haven't you?
No Biff Tannen on my back.
The one where he's in number 3, he's in the
hate
high
manure.
rise. Yeah.
Buford.
All right, let's go. We've got 20 cars to get through. They're iconic cars. We're not going to say the top 20 in no particular order. I'm going to kick it off. We need to talk not only about the car, but I think we should talk about...
Take your vest off, Rory, before you forget.
Yeah, we should talk about the performance, the position in the movie, maybe a line from the movie, and I'm going to kick it off.
And personal experiences with these cars, if there are any.
Yeah, I'm going to kick it off with a 1958 Plymouth Fury from the movie Christine. It was called Christine. It was red. It was the first vehicle I ever saw that had tinted windows. And, mate, what an iconic vehicle. What an iconic vehicle, Mark.
Yes, and I mean, everyone who knows that movie, that car was pretty much out to just kill people.
It was.
That movie was, without being a total tragic about the movie Christine, it was definitely iconic in the fact that it was
Stephen King?
a horror movie about a car.
Yeah.
Which is cool because it sort of ticked two boxes there. It was cars and horror movies.
The only thing really scary about it was the soundtrack that Stephen put over when he was chasing the guy, the big strong guy, and he ran over him and he caught fire. That was probably about the scariest bit of the lot. There wasn't really blood and gore, was there, Rory?
No, but it did kill someone in the opening scene, which is pretty cool for a car movie.
On the line, on the
which wasn't
line.
even in the book.
Yeah.
Incidentally.
If you want to get people's attention in a movie, you kill them in the opening scene.
That's it.
Yeah.
But from a car's point of view, it was a bright red car with fins with a big silver slash and a white piece across the bottom, and it had presence on the screen. All the other cars were... I mean, by this stage, the movie was being filmed in the sort of 70s, late 70s, and then there was this car that came out of nowhere, And as Arnie, who was building it up, was just this little. Well, he actually looked a lot like you.
Not Arnie,
right?
as in Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No. He looked a bit like
yeah.
you, except he had better hair.
Yeah.
Right. And he built this car, and it was a love affair with a car that was a bit psychotic as well.
And you know what? These days, looking back at that movie, you'd have to say that your 57 Chevs and that era of Chevrolets are probably the most desirable from that era.
Yep.
My personal opinion, I might be wrong, but that movie has definitely made the 58 Plymouth Fury a more desirable car too. If you've got one of them, you've got a Christine.
Let's take a car cruise. You go to a car cruise in a 57 Chev, right? And you rock in a 57 Chev. You can have it modified and Pro Street and turbos and stuff. You rock in a bone stock 58 Plymouth Fury, people go, yeah, right. There's something about...
Watch out for that car.
Yeah,
it's coming to kill you.
They actually do. They go, yeah,
it's
right.
either that or a Ford Mustang.
You know,
yeah.
and I've seen one in green. One was painted green. And you even look at it, still painted green, and you kind of go, yeah, there's something about that car. So, infamy, whatever you want to call it, that car kicks the list off. So, let's go straight into number 2.
Oh, wait, I'm going to want to throw an extra point in there because I did a little bit of research on this car. It turns out that the sound wasn't up to scratch, that it wasn't scary enough, the sound of the revs. So the filmmakers recorded a 1970 Mustang 428 Super Cobra Jet.
428 Cobra Jet.
428 as the sound of the revving noise.
Which has that's a big block, so it has a deeper cam sort of a noise, and it gives it a bit more, a bit of that.
Yeah, right, so if you're an audiophile, you'll hear that.
And that does lead actually into the next car, because speaking of audio tracks and 28,000 gear changes in a 400-metre strip of road, the Fast and the Furious, Dominic Toretto's Charger.
Well, there was heaps of cars from that movie.
1970 Dodge Charger.
But there's only one car you can focus on from that entire movie selection of nine movies.
Oh, there's a zillion cool cars and weird cars and contraptions and stuff in that movie. But that Charger was the muscle car in that movie and the iconic one.
And probably, if you think objectively, that car, that look, that blower, probably instigated the love of the muscle car during a period of time where we should be all driving Priuses and 4-cylinder cars. That car and that movie franchise has actually kept probably the muscle car dream alive for a lot of people.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and hopefully he may hear this, Craig Lieberman, who was one of the big instigators in that movie with bringing the cars in, creating the cars, he was the guy behind the Supra and all that, really brought out that whole JDM versus American Muscle thing by having the Supra versus the Charger as
absolutely
closing scene in the movie. Iconic, this ridiculous blown thing lifting the front wheels off the ground,
smoking the tyres at the same time.
Yeah, versus
which is doable. You can do it.
2JZ or 2JZ.
Yeah. Aerotop
Supra. Yeah. So and for people in Adelaide who have been to car shows and stuff like that, as we're running out of time on this one, we are lucky enough to have, it's the Bergerman brothers.
Frank Bergerman has one. However, I'm just going to quickly draw everybody's attention to one thing. If ever you see one of these cars, make sure that you truly know it's a replica by the exposed headlights. If it doesn't have the exposed headlights, just dismiss it as a fake. It's the look of the car is so important. That car, one of my all-time favourites, and if we get enough time, I'll talk you through my final 5, and it includes that car. Let's go to number 3.
All right.
Well, what I don't know if the car or the tagline is "No one messes with little Enos," and that, of course, is the 1977 Pontiac Trans Am from Smokey and the Bandit. What an iconic vehicle!
Yeah, rest in peace, Burt Reynolds. It wasn't long ago that he did pass away. So, yeah, such a cool car. I know of a Smokey and the Bandit spec Trans Am in Adelaide.
Yep.
Which is just sitting there, I think half sort of restored, but being driven, stuff like that. But yeah, iconic and massively, and a car that in the movie was, drove it like he, stole it.
But you've got to know your cars, because there's 2 types of Trans Ams, and there's one that's got more of a plastic one-piece front, whereas the one he had the sculptured gills on the front of it with the gold highlights. That is the true Smokey the Bandit, and what we call a GT car, Rory, which is Grand Touring style. The first American, you could go across America comfortably in this vehicle at speed, but an iconic car, and you'd be all over that, wouldn't you?
I actually haven't seen that film.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul Schaefer.
Moving on. You should probably do yourself a favour and get a big box of popcorn and watch it. Or watch all of the Smokey and the
I'm
Bandit
trying to remember
movies.
the name of the dog.
I'll make it a
What was
priority.
the name of the dog? The trucker's dog? Was it Ralph?
Jeebus. Yeah.
Cletus? Something like anyway.
You know what? I'm going to Google that quickly
While
we're moving
take you
on.
to the next one. The next one, and that is one of my all-time favourite cars, the 1961 Ferrari 250 GT California Spider, short wheelbase from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I have seen that one.
Mr. Fry's car.
That's one I definitely have seen.
Yeah. Fry.
And just quickly going back, that dog's name
Fry.
was Fred.
Fred. That's right.
So, yeah, awesome car. Based on a car that's worth $1 bazillion now, if you can find one, or if you've got enough money to buy 10 buildings in downtown LA.
Yeah.
The rumour was a while ago that the cars for the movie were based on MGBs, I think, and our good friend Matt, who used to be Viper Imports in Adelaide, now lives in Florida, buying and selling cars over there, doing a bit of political stuff and living the dream. He actually had one of the cars that was built for that movie.
Wow.
Super cool. They got it, restored it. Off the top of my head, I think it had a small block Ford V8 in it.
Yep.
And Matt, being the cheeky guy he is, he had the number plate Sick Day.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I know that they cast that car in the movie because they wanted to shock the audience, and it was a younger audience they were angling for, and everyone had posters of Lamborghini Countachs on their walls, and Americans were mad for Lamborghinis, but they wanted to put a car in there that was iconic and classic and a connoisseur's car, which Mr. Fry was, and so they put this vehicle in there, and there's a couple of shots of a real one in there, especially when you can see under the bonnet when it's in the garage, but the car they kick and they go off the back was like a mock-up, and it was a pretty good one at that. I still can't forget the look of the two car park attendants' faces when they went over the jump, and mate, that almost could be like our intro to the Hoonatics.
And the bit where they high five each other as they go off.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a movie, that's like top 10 all time awesome movies. But
who wouldn't want to own that car?
It's one of those movies where and I could talk about another movie, Risky Business, as well. It's a brilliant movie for people who just like good movies, but also it became a car guy movie too because of the fact that... car person movie.
Yeah.
Because it had that awesome car in it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the fifth car, and that's an interesting one, which is the Iron Man Audi R8 that's appeared in the Iron Man franchise. He stuck true to it. It was an interesting car because it had no modifications. It was literally product placement on Audi's behalf. And they took a gamble because originally they wanted to do potentially a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW, something European. And Audi stepped up and said, we actually have this new supercar no one's seen before.
With a German accent.
We have this new car. No one has seen this car. We're going to give it to you because the man in the metal suit, he will go very well with the car. And the early pre-production R8 appeared in the movie. And then it evolved over time right through to the last one, which was the e-tron.
Yeah.
Which is the last of the V10 convertibles.
It's funny, like the R8, my personal opinion is I'm still, the jury's still out on this. I'm like, I still can't get my head around whether I love it or I hate it. It's one of those...
Have you ever been in one?
No. And I mean, I'd probably love it if I drove one.
Plug for Solitaire Automotive in Adelaide. Love you guys. Too bad you sacked me.
If you got a spare R8 kicking around, I'll take it for the weekend.
I went for a ride in one, Mark. Because the transaxle and bits and pieces are the same as the Gallardo.
Yeah, but that's where for me it gets confusing because it's almost like it wants to be a supercar, but it's not. It's got the supercar engine and all that, especially if you get the V10 one. But it's not Lambo's supercar cool.
Misogynistic, politically incorrect, Jason. Now, if you want to go and pick up chicks, Lambos are awesome. If you want to pick up a classy chick, go on an R8. I've never seen a classy chick, not a one that works down Hanson Road.
I mean, it's probably a more practical supercar. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right, next car.
Middle-aged men, we are. Number 6, one of my favourites. Happy to admit that I've seen this car, sat in this car. It is the 1973 Ford XB GT Coupe, wrapped up by the Main Force Patrol to patrol the streets, the Mad Max Coupe. What a vehicle. What an iconic car.
Oh, and, good, solid Aussie movie, but this car, any man or any person who's into cars and stuff, I mean, there's Mad Max Interceptor replicas everywhere.
Around the world.
Yeah.
Around the
America,
world.
I believe Japan. Even if you go to, and my brain's just completely fried because it's this early in the morning, up in Broken Hill where the movie was shot, there is one sitting right next to the pub there.
There's all sorts of
but yeah, it's in its day such a cool, tough.
Yeah.
Like it was built for a purpose, and they did a really good job of it.
Now, let me just quickly give you a couple of quick facts because I do know a bit about this car. This vehicle was actually sitting in the Iron Bank Wreckers for many, many years and was for sale for $2,500. And the guy at night used to drive it around his wrecking yard, the old guy who's now since passed away, and it sat there. But when that movie came out, it was so popular and it made it into America that a company in America, a speed shop, laid claim to building the engine in that car, and they claimed that it was a 455 Pontiac motor. There was all this sort of stuff done about it, and they laid claim, we built the motor, and George Miller came out and went, it's an Australian car and it was built in Australia and the blower doesn't work. And put it all to work, put it all to rest. It's gone on. It's now over in America in a collector's museum. Last time it sold freaking gazillion dollars. I don't know why Mel Gibson doesn't buy it. I think it's just one of those cars. If Mel Gibson owned that car and just had it, it's where it needs to be. Or it should be in the Museum of Australia.
I would like to actually see that car make a token random appearance in a future Expendables movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's such an iconic car. It should be protected by Australia. It really should. Let's go on to number 7. Q. Rory, you ready? Going to get your lips around this one?
I'm ready.
Originally the Volkswagen Beetle / 1977 Camaro / 2009 Camaro yellow Bumblebee from Transformers. You'd be all over this, wouldn't you, brother?
I am all over this.
Oh, here we go. Well, look, it's an iconic vehicle for a number of different reasons, but it's not so much the car, it's more the paint colour, Mark. The yellow and black stripes. It's Bumblebee, isn't it? And then went from probably one of the coolest Camaros to being a modern Camaro. And, you know, every kid now knows that Camaro. They'll say Bumblebee, Bumblebee, Bumblebee.
Oh, and, you know, you look at the movie from 2009 where it started off as a 77 Camaro, and that was cool because it was just like this beat-up first car that his dad helped him buy.
Do you remember he lifted the bonnet, what Megan Fox saw? Do you remember what was under there?
Well, I don't remember the bonnet. I just remember
under
Megan
the bonnet
Fox.
was a small block with quad Webbers. And you kind of go, whoever was the movie guy got that right because that's what you'd expect to see.
Well, I think, you know, like movie cars nowadays aren't being built, like they're being built by car guys.
They are,
because
they have to be.
because they have to be correct. You know, otherwise people will pick the eyes out of, you know, that's not right.
No credit and you get shredded.
Yeah.
Let's go on to number 8. Number 8 is another one of my all-time favourites for a number of different reasons.
Before we announce it, will Jason turn your sound effects machine on and give us the siren?
Oh, the siren?
Yeah.
What, do you want me to sing the song?
No. I was trying to make...
Is
No. It was more... Yeah,
it's a class 5 apparition. Who cares?
Ecto 1 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor.
Yep. Did you ever heard of one of those?
No, actually, I didn't know that was the actual name of the vehicle. But,
so back in the 50s, Cadillac actually sold body styles to order. And if you've ever seen the movie Cadillac Man, which is another segue for another podcast for another time, they would sell you a Cadillac to whatever your requirements were. If you wanted to put the Pope in it, they'd build you a Pope-mobile. And what they did is they realised that the hearses for carrying dead bodies and funerals were ideally suited to a Cadillac because the lower the kilometres on the Cadillac, the better the resale. So they would flog hearses, they would flog government vehicles, limos, anything. And the Miller Meteor was essentially that long wheelbase wagon that had a utilitarian use and just found its way into Ghostbusters. And it reminds me a little bit, Rory, of Christine. It's a vehicle that is unorthodox but with so much presence.
Yeah.
You couldn't not remember it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
apparently, when they did publicity tours for the film, just shortly after its release, they would drive the car around wherever, and every time it went out, cars started crashing all around because people just couldn't. They were like, "Oh my god, Decto 1!" Bam, crashing into things.
And if you talk about cars that were replicated from movie cars, there is no other use for a Cadillac hearse. You can't do anything else with it.
Like, my personal opinion is that they got it so right using that car in that movie. They could have had the Ghostbusters van. They could have done all sorts of stuff like that. But that car was just cool. They got it so right.
Very disappointing that in the modern retake of it with the ladies in the lead role, that Ecto didn't get a better representation. They had a modern interpretation, and I get that, I understand that, but I've seen that vehicle at Universal Studios. It was in a sorry state when I got to see it. It's now since been restored, and it tours with cars and stuff like that. But what a great car! What a great car! Which leads me to one of my favourite movies of all time. I can dance all of the dances. I can sing all the songs. My wife drives her nuts. The 1974 Dodge Monaco from the Blues Brothers. Yeah? Any lines? Just quickly, any lines from the movie? Go on, Rory.
Lines from the movie.
They broke my watch.
I'm trying to think, because he does give this very specifics about what goes into the car. Cop shocks, cop.
Oh yeah. Well, beat this one out. Oh my God, I don't believe it. It's that shitbox Dodge, right? That's always a good one. Orange whip.
Perfect.
Orange whip. 3 orange whips.
Oh, such a cool movie. Yes. But that car, and what they could do in that car, they were like magicians, really, weren't they?
There were 3 characters in the movie. There were the Blues Brothers, and then there was that car. That car was untouchable. It was amazing. Let me show you. Let me quickly give you some cool stuff. The car had a number plate which was BDR 529, and many people say that the BDR was reference to the Black Diamond Riders, which was a motorcycle club out of Toronto. That they had that on there. The car had a 440 in the filming because the producer wanted to have the hottest cop car available at the time. The guy that sold it to him was, I think, BB King in the movie. So they had that reference to him as well. The cigarette lighter doesn't work. And being a Dodge Monaco, I don't know about you guys if you've ever owned a Chrysler. I have a Chrysler. I have a Chrysler, and the cigarette lighter worked. Have a guess what I did, the first modifications to the car? I made sure the cigarette lighter didn't work.
Nice.
How's that? So I kept the Mopar going with it. But that amazing car. I could talk about that car forever and a day. Anything special from you, Rory?
Only that I brought in the car.
Let's have a look. Here it is. Has it got the? It doesn't have the number plate on it. It has the push bars at the front of it. Now,
I have a large scale version of the same car, as in Matchbox as well.
Mark, have you got any? Can you remember what was written on the front guard?
Oh, let me.
No, don't Google it.
No. Well, I can kind of cheat. I've got a picture of it here. Was it Serve and Protect?
Yes. And in a podcast previous to this, we had Jake Driftwood Jones in here. I once made him write on his car on the front panel to swerve and to collect. So he thought that was. And he didn't understand my Blues Brothers reference.
That's what you put on the front guard of a Mustang, isn't it?
To swerve and collect. Let's move on.
Okay.
Next one is Tim Burton's Batman from Batman and Batman Returns. This is the big, long, plastic Play-Doh looking thing with a turbo fan at the front of it.
Yeah, which basically was supposed to be a jet engine. It was a pretty amazing, out there looking thing.
Very gothic in design, wasn't it?
Oh, from memory, built on a Corvette chassis.
Big block. It had a 4-space, had an auto, and had a 9-inch.
And there's a guy who's built a replica of one in Australia, and he uses it for charities and all sorts of stuff. Like pretty cool sort of setup. But
we have to use Batman voices when we talk about it.
You do that. You're Bat Dad.
What's that line? Chicks dig the car. She uses that line in the movie. He even refers to it as the car for a while before you even see it.
You do the Joker voice.
No, not going to do that. But awesome car. But that sort of leads into.
That they built there was someone who built a replica that put a real jet engine in it. Have you seen that on YouTube?
I really like
There
the
really
sound
is
of
one.
this.
I've got the specs here. He built it using a Boeing turbine engine culled from a drone helicopter. Its top speed was 298 kilometers an hour.
Take that, Joker. Catch up with that, buddy.
But that's the thing, like Batman as like a science fiction, like a superhero kind of rich guy thing. I mean, he was the Tony Stark before Tony Stark, wasn't he? So
yeah.
But
I ain't driving no Audi.
Looking back to like famous people after, like famous movie car builders, rest in peace George Barris.
Yes.
The original Batmobile, which was in 1966, which is a 55 Lincoln Futura.
Yes.
With the big jet fire coming out the back of it.
Yes.
And the bubble top roof and all that sort of stuff. That was a super cool car. I did read somewhere that I think in 2013 or something like that. The original Batmobile sold for $4.2 million.
Ridiculous money.
And you know what? It'd probably be worth more now.
And realistically, cars are designed to invoke emotions out of people. And you can take a Batmobile, doesn't matter what configuration, what year, whether it's a Tumbler or whether it's the original one, drive it anywhere. Kids will stop and look at it, and grown-ups will stop and look at it. Everyone will stop and look at it and go, well, I know what that is. It's recognisable. Which brings me...
No, well, hang on. If you had the choice, if you were in Hollywood right now and they had two sets of keys in front of you and they said, here's the keys to a brand new Bugatti Veyron or Bugatti Chiron or whatever, or what was the one we were talking about, Devo, the $10 million car, or here's the keys to the original Batmobile, what would you drive?
You're asking me that question?
Exactly.
Punk. As long as you could dress up as Robin, would you dress up as Robin?
Okay, next car.
Do you know what? He'd make a good villain, I reckon, though, wouldn't he?
No, Roy's too nice for that.
No, look at the light.
He's too upbeat. He
it's
could
a
be
bit
the
of
Joker.
Riddler about him. It's a bit of Riddler.
Riddler Joker?
Yeah, there's a bit of Riddler about him. We might have to
I'll
give
take
him a green spandex suit. Let's go to the next one, because another really cool American muscle car, the 1969 Dodge Charger of the Dukes of Hazzard.
Bo and Luke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, before the Fast and the Furious, this car was the one that, what would you say, significantly reduced the number of Dodge Chargers in America. Because they smashed up about 4 billion of them making the
a
TV
beautiful
show.
story tainted with a lot of pain. Yes, these vehicles are very, very rare, very hard to get hold of, almost like diamonds now. What they created was a persona for a car that led to the Fast and Furious. There's no doubt in my mind that the Americans' love affair and the world's love affair with the Charger has only been pushed by Dom Toretto's black one. However, so bad is the situation in regards to securing cars like this, they're reproducing as much of the cars as possible. And the movies and the stunt houses and that are now putting the bodies onto Crown Victorias, which are a Ford Falcon. And they're actually doing them like that and reusing them over and over again. Any lines from the movies that you can think of that were said in this car?
Not on this one.
You know, I swear...
Well, Roy did make a good point on the phone yesterday when I was talking to him, where I mentioned this car and he goes, hang on, but that's a TV car.
That's a TV car.
And I was like,
primarily.
yes, in 2005 they resurrected it so that...
Sean William Scott and Johnny Knoxville.
And Johnny Knoxville,
That's it. Yeah.
who did a brilliant job, I thought.
Who was Uncle
come
Jesse?
on. You don't have to ask me that.
Go on.
What's her name?
No, Uncle Jesse.
Oh, Uncle Jesse, Willie Nelson.
That's correct. Who was Daisy?
Jessica Simpson.
Yeah.
Who was Boss Hogg?
And all of those characters.
Who's Boss Hogg?
Yeah, Burt Reynolds.
Yeah. Right.
So all of those characters perfectly cast.
Don't you know
for
you're
that
not
movie.
supposed to wear white after Labor Day? Let me just quickly tell you one quick fun fact about it. Holds the world record for a vehicle jump. That vehicle, they did the jump in the movie on the freeway is a world record movie jump for a car. The longest distance. Yeah, they destroyed the car, and I think they've now since rebuilt it and done something with it. But yeah, anyway, let's move on.
And also the other point was that it always had its doors welded shut.
It did.
Question. In the trailer to that movie, they had that, whilst it's doing that jump, you hear this, but in the movie, it's not there. I can't remember. In the show, was that the horn?
Absolutely.
Yeah, hang on, you do it.
No,
that's like a Garacha.
See? Got it wrong.
No, so it did have
Go on.
Yeah, the musical air horn. So that was the iconic part of that car,
Which was the Confederate call to charge.
and also the wheels, which were
Hurricanes.
Hurricanes, yeah. So I always had the Hurricanes on it. The I think BF Goodrich's on it. So the tire rotting, all that sort of stuff.
Screamed America.
And any man who's been a massive fan of that car always. There's been so many replicas built with the Hurricanes, the BFs, the rotting on it, the tramp bars in the back, all that sort of stuff.
Yep, rightfully so.
Cool
and
car.
The rear boot-mounted aerial. The boot-mounted aerial was iconic. Okay, let's go.
And next car, movie cars from that era. One awesome, brilliant actor who, in one of my favourite movies too, The Great Escape, Steve McQueen.
Yes.
And one of the most famous movie chase scenes ever.
Which also featured a Charger.
Yeah. Which also featured a Charger.
But that's not the car we're talking about.
The Mustang GT Fastback from Bullitt, which is cool because Ford, massive thumbs up to them. I know there's one floating around in Australia, press car, please give it to me because I want to do stuff with it. Is the Bullitt Mustang, the new one they've done. Street Machine recently had it at Summernat, so cruising around, and they've done everything right to make a new version of that car.
I'm just going to hold you there. With the most amount of respect, this is airtime for the original GT Fastback.
100%. Yeah,
That car copped a flogging in very standard orientated form by McQueen around San Francisco. Overtook the same Volkswagen a million times in filming. He drove it without a stunt double. He did the driving because he could drive. He was a real good gearhead and a good wheelman.
A legend,
One of the iconic pictures and scenes in the movie was when he's reversing, doing a burnout, and just hazing the tyres, and he's looking back over his shoulder going, I'm just going to slam this thing down and go. It just was a vehicle at the time that was... It's like the Iron Man R8. It's the best positioning of a brand product that just built a legend.
And, I mean, and one of the parts of the chase that I remember too is the bit where he smashes through a Mazda dealership. And you look back now and you're like, wow, there's like Mazda RX-3s and RX-2s and all sorts of stuff in there. Looking at Mustangs and stuff like that, side note, but Gone in 60 Seconds with the Eleanor Mustang.
No. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that as well.
Every time you put a Mustang up, if you can get a shade of green on the car, people actually subliminally know that's the Bullitt Mustang.
I do remember seeing it. I'll hunt it down for the YouTube viewers. There was a video.
And they can't price it. They can't put a value on it.
They've got the original owners of it, so the dad
It's priceless?
owned it.
It's priceless. And again, it will probably end up in the Smithsonian Museum, which is where the Mad Max coupe should head for Australia. Let's move on, because the next car... Plural. Ooh, plural. There's not one, there's not two, there's three. And I don't know why I'm speaking in this accent, because it is the English 1968 Mini Cooper S's in red, white and blue of course, the Italian Job. Charlie's cars.
Sorry, I'm just going to go quickly back there. 1968 was the year that Bullitt came out.
Yes.
And the original Gone in 60 Seconds came out in 1974. So it was, and the Mustang in Gone in 60 Seconds, the original one was the fugly... early 70s one, I think. But it was still the fastback and everything like that. But yeah, anyway, so
the Italian Job, even though it was named after a country in Europe, Italy, the Italian Job, this was a blue, red, white and blue flag for the UK. It wasn't advertising minis, it was advertising the UK and what the UK could produce.
So you're saying they used a French flag?
No, because it's red, white and blue. But these three minis came on like the provincial British Bulldog. They could have used, Aston Martins and stuff like that. But no, they used minis. And to such good effect, those cars showed everybody why they're so iconic by what they did in the movie.
And what minis were capable of. I mean, you only got to look back to the early days of Bathurst and stuff like that, where the Mini came out and it was the giant killer.
Yeah.
Went out against big V8 cars and stuff like that.
When they drove through the tunnel in the original movie, not the one that they made in America later on, but when they drove through the tunnel, I just had these visions of Paddy Hopkirk in the Monaco Rally with his lights ablaze in his red Cooper S driving through. These vehicles were built to do that. I don't know if they were designed to haul gold and take gold, but nonetheless, it was pretty cool.
And my personal thing is, I mentioned this in an early podcast, my very first Mini was Mini 850, so I love Minis. Cool cars. If you've never driven one, drive one. you realise Alec Ignosis, I think it was the guy that designed them originally. You get inside a Mini, you're like, hang on, where did all this space come from? They're a very cleverly designed car.
Yeah.
Small on the outside, big on the inside.
Right, I'm going to tell you...
just a question about it, because I'm just genuinely interested, and I don't know. Does the... was it ever explained why the filmmakers chose the Mini? Was it a particular stunt that they wanted to do? Was it driving through the tunnels because they knew they could smash them up if need be and replace them fairly cheaply? Or
They needed something to represent the UK. They needed a vehicle that would represent the UK, and they needed 3.
Okay.
And I think at the time they were using them for a promotional point of view. I don't know the backstory on it, but
Okay.
I am going to digress one slightly, and you're going to let me indulge you in this story because this is something that's pretty cool. Not many people have ever heard this story. I lived for 3 years in Scotland. And I bumped into a guy called Nicky Dixon, hopefully he's listening, running Dixon's in Perth, and Nicky was a big fan. He bought himself one of only a handful of Huntington Legionnaires. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
Sounds like a disease.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It is a 6-wheel bus. He bought one with the view of converting it into a replica of the bus at the end of the scene. When I was there and working for him and all that sort of stuff, he said to me, Jace, the bus from the Italian Job is in Glenrothes, about half an hour away. I'm like, get stuffed, no way. So I made a point of going to this place in Glenrothes, and I tracked this bus down to find the bus from the Italian Job. And I got there and it was a wrecking yard, Mark. And when I said to the guy, hey, I'm here to see this bus, he goes, yeah, right, it's up the back there, man. Go and have a look, down by the pale. So I got up there and there was a guy and there was just all smoke and stuff like that. And I said, where's the bus? And he goes, there. And on the ground, I kid you not, was a pile of melted aluminium. They had melted the bus down because it was made of aluminium and bits and pieces and stuff like that.
So what did he call you in for? Just to rub it in?
No. Nicky thought the bus was still there, and he was using it as to buy parts off and do bits and pieces and stuff like that. And I went there to get something off the bus as a souvenir, and I ended up looking at a pile of melted metal on the ground.
Did you take any of the melted metal?
No.
And say this is what's left of it?
It was steaming. It was hot. It was so sad. But such an iconic bus at the time had been reduced to that. So
and in my research about this movie here, lesser known fact probably, there was 16 cars used in the filming of that. They were all scrapped and left in Italy.
Yep.
And it was in 2006, a 42-year-old man from Newcastle in the UK, David Morton, bought those 3 cars as boxes of bits for £6,000 and then restored them.
Outstanding.
And
what are they worth now? $6 million.
Tons.
Should we go on to a car that I know you have got a hot fact about, and it is the next car. It is the Grease Lightning 1948 Ford Deluxe. What an iconic vehicle. Now, I'm not big for, movies which are about singing and crap like that, and I get all that, and I really only watched that for the leather pants that Olivia Newton-John was wearing at the time. But there was the cars that actually was the bonus in that movie, I believe.
Like I said before, it was a movie that was good for everyone. Like, if your girlfriend wasn't into cars, but she was into musicals and stuff like that, she loved it, and plus you probably like checking out John Travolta. But then for the guys, we were like, it's got good-looking girls in it and awesome, cool cars from that era, that sort of hot rod era and stuff like that. Plus drag racing and bit of
white
Ford
carnage. Deluxe with the stripes on the side. I'd never seen anything like that. It was one of my first forays into seeing modified cars. And then that black thing that the Stingrays had. Was it the Stingrays?
Yeah. Hang on, we'll have to search that one. But yeah, the I wouldn't say lesser known fact, but the cool thing is that most people probably wouldn't realise that that 48 Ford Deluxe is reasonably the same model car that Biff Tannen drove in Back to the Future, the 46 Ford.
I hate manure.
So, except Biff's was cool because it was black.
Oh, and red.
And full of manure.
And
yeah.
it was a side valve V8 as well. Well, it was a good choice of car from Grease's point of view. There was a couple of scenes where they had a red car with lots of wings and stuff on the back of it in the dance scenes, and they had a fully detailed engine, V8 engine with triples on it, if my memory serves me correct. I was more interested in the engine and the detailing on that than John Travolta doing this sort of stuff, you know what I mean, dancing around. But that brings us to the next car.
Hang on, but the cool thing about that movie too, for like car people, car builders and restorers, is the fact that they actually got a car. It was like a text tech studies group.
Yes,
and
it
they
was.
got an old beat up car and did it up, which is like what we all love doing.
It had a bit of a Happy Days Fonzie feel about it, didn't it?
And the other car in the movie that they raced was a 1949 Mercury, as known as Hell's Chariot.
Yeah,
and that was the one with the
Flamers.
Yeah, and the Pink Lady's car. I wouldn't say close to my heart, but I love Studebakers. That was a 48 Studebaker Commander Regal. But that's going off on a tangent on a lesser known movie cars.
We should do that as a separate podcast.
Yeah,
a lesser known movie cars podcast. Let's do that.
All right, what's your space?
Okay, next car. Well, no. It was the other guy. It wasn't Sean Connery. It was Roger Moore that drove this.
Moore. And it's as far as actors go, you could never really say who was the best Bond because Connery.
Oh, no, you can.
Nah.
Yeah, you can. There's only one that is the best.
Roger Moore.
No. It has to be Daniel Craig. He has to be the all-time best. Everything. The lines, the car. He drove everything. I'm sorry.
No, beg to differ. Yeah. I like Roger Moore, Sean Connery.
Anybody who says
Miss
that
Money
it was Roger
Penny
Moore
like
is
Sean
old.
Connery.
Yeah. Look at modern
Miss
Money Penny.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Cha-ching. James Bond's Lotus Esprit Series 1, which is the Spy Who Loved Me, which is otherwise known as the submarine car. An extremely iconic car. They even made it into a Matchbox car. It was so iconic.
And as a series of movies, like awesome because it's all the the spy movies and everything like that. But if you're a car enthusiast, a whole crap load of cool cars used in that movie with all the Hollywood. Well, I wouldn't say Hollywood. Special effects and
analog, pre-digital. It was all analog.
And the thing I was saying yesterday is if you are in London and you get to the film museum, which is in Covent Gardens.
Yes.
I went there last year. I just happened to be in London and I'm like, the world of Bond cars and stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, this will be interesting. Walked down the stairs and I'm like, awesome. It was like pretty much every cool Bond car.
Well, that Lotus Esprit was probably, there's been a couple of iconic cars, but that one really stood out because it was so unique. And when he drove back out of the water and he threw the fish out the door, everyone sort of looked and went, oh my God. They actually made a real working submarine car for that movie.
But it was a scale model.
It was a scale model. But
and that's actually in the museum there.
It is just, the shape of that car, it was a supercar. It was a budget supercar at the time. And Lotus needed to do something to get the public to say, hey, look at this car. And on the back of that, I'm going to go as far to say is the Lotus Esprit probably sold more cars post being in that movie. If they hadn't been in it, they may not have had the success they had.
And you probably know this, but Roy, do you know the actual correct meaning of the word Lotus?
No, I don't know.
No, it means lots of trouble, usually serious.
And if you're underwater with James Bond, yeah. Now, let's go into the next car. I bring back my voice. Because this is the one that gives me the motion.
Batman voice again?
I kind of beg to differ because it's kind of like it's not really a car. It's kind of half a tractor, half a sprint car because it's got sprint car tyres on the front of it.
Don't make me hit you with a bat phone. It is, of course, the Tumbler. The Tumbler from the more modern Batman series, Batman Begins and Dark Knight. This is the one that was driven by Christian Bale. It was a military prototype vehicle, and it works, it drives, it's got Mickey Thompson Hoosiers, dirt circuit Hoosiers on the front and off-road things on the back and turns into a motorbike and all this sort of stuff. I didn't like this car to start with, and I'm going to call it a car, but it has grown on me. Time and time again, it has grown on me.
Oh, it's so cool because it's so left of field. It's like they went to some crazy people and said, come to us with some ideas for something you think the Batman would drive. And then out of nowhere, the designer, whose name I don't know, which I can Google, came to them with this, and they were like, wow.
The only thing I don't get about this car, it's not polished. All the Batman gadgets and planes and bikes, they're all polished. This is not. This is a real, let's just put this here and put that there and paint this black and do that. But it worked. And the bit I don't totally understand and I don't totally get, and I am a bit of a movie buff like you, is he's heading towards Heath Ledger and Heath Ledger's coming towards him and there's a guy coming in the other direction with a dump truck So not dump truck, a rubbish truck. And he goes forward in the tumbler and they go underneath the rubbish truck. They push the rubbish truck into the ceiling and destroy the rubbish truck. And then the tumbler keeps on driving. And I think to myself, okay, that is uber cool. That is awesome. But those front tyres are exposed. So call me a movie buff nerd. I'm a car guy. You got to get that stuff right.
And yeah, getting back to that, the two guys that came up with the concept for that car were actually Christopher Nolan, who's a British-American film director, screenwriter, producer.
The director of the film.
Yes. He got together with a guy called Nathan Crowley, who's a Hollywood production designer. And
they took a lot of acid.
But they wanted it to work for real, as far as I
They
remember.
did.
Everything had to be practical.
Yeah.
I remember that being important to Christopher Nolan when they were making that film. And unlike the Tim Burton Batmobile, like it just had to look cool. Didn't have to do any of the stuff that.
Yeah.
Just
this
had
had
to
to
shoot
be
flames.
real. So I guess you can't go too crazy.
You know, when you think back to the original Bat car we were talking a little bit earlier on, the big long one.
Yeah.
New York is small. The streets are narrow. How do you get a car like that around?
I know, right?
You know, they didn't really think about it. They went for more form over function, whereas this was more function over form, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, so let's go to the next
hang
car.
on, a couple of quick specs on that car. Like we were talking about functional, it was a 5.7 litre. I'm guessing
LS?
Maybe timing was 5.7, 500 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds. It was 2.5 tons, but you know it was basically a tank with sprint car tyres on it. But you know, high five to those guys that designed it, because you know, as you know, I'm a guy that likes crazy ideas. And
do you know the
if I
car
can
it does
make
remind me of though? It reminds me a little bit of the Homer car, where someone's just closed their eyes and gone, right, I'm going to draw a car with my eyes closed, and they go, oh, look at that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no real design to that thing. When you think about it, it's got a tandem axle at the back. It's got some sprint car tyres at the front on some weird outboard riggers that steer somehow, some weird steering. A dude sits in the middle around armour plating. I'm sure they could have come up with something a bit better, but...
I won't use the term though. Oh, I will, but it's cool because it's not a vanilla kind of car.
There it is.
It's so left of field that it is iconic now. And even though there's been so many cool Batmobiles, it is like that craziest one they did.
Yeah, it is. It is.
All right, what's next?
Oh, wait, I got to jump in with a question for both you guys, just regarding the two Batmobiles that we've had on the list so far.
Speak to me like this.
If you get a chance to drive,
Tumbler.
You'd take the Tumbler over the 89
didn't even have to
Batmobile?
finish it. Yeah, forget the other piece of plastic junk. I like the Tumbler.
What about you,
I
Boxer?
don't know. I think I'd still go back to the...
Tell me, what would Batgirl drive?
She had a bat bike.
No, sorry, you're Robin. What does Robin drive?
He doesn't. He's a passenger. No, he had a bike as well, didn't he?
He's got a bike.
Yeah,
I think it was a green Hyundai.
I think.
What would you drive, Boxer? If you get a chance?
It's a hard one because you know you'd have to go back to the original Adam West Batmobile, the 66.
Kapow!
Well,
slap.
from 66,
Can we
yeah.
put some of those icons on?
Would you say you drive the 66 Batmobile over the Tumbler if you got a chance? One chance, and you only get to drive it once.
You're going to be late to the fight, I know that.
No, actually, put it that way. If you got to drive it in anger, because obviously the original Batmobile, you just cruise around Vegas or Hollywood and
Picking
look cool.
up chicks, yeah, I like that.
But if you got to drive the Tumbler and they said, here's a course that you can drive it around and go nuts in, then you put on a helmet and go for your life. Yeah.
Well, if you have to work like
maybe
in town at 6 o'clock in the morning to do Podbooth, I'm driving the Tumbler, baby. Everybody's waking up when I wake up.
You know, it's probably based.
It's time to dance.
It's probably based, or however many Tumblers they built are based in LA somewhere. So if Jake Jones can't get his drift car over there, maybe they can lend him one for Formula D. Nobody's going to want to have to do a tandem battle against that.
Speaking of replica cars, one of the most replicated all-time iconic movie cars ever around the world,
and easiest to replicate,
is the 1963 model 117 Volkswagen Type 1 Beetle, the Love Bug. Herbie, 53. Come on, guys. That is, you know, you think about recognisable cars on the road. You know, even modern Beetles that have got 53 and Herbie. Everybody loves a Herbie Beetle, surely.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you know, the Volkswagen Beetle's like one of the most iconic cars ever.
It is.
Yeah, the people's car.
And the Volkswagen Beetle's most, iconic thing about the design of the cars is the subtle changes to the bonnet point, the rear window, what it looks like. Is it oval? Is it rectangle? And also the bird hangers. on the bumper bars. You know, did it have the bird hangers? Did it not have the bird hangers? Was it the rally spec? Was it the street spec? Was it the early spec? There's so many different things that you could delve into. It could be a separate podcast just on Herbie the Love Beetle. But what I think that car did is it created a mentality for people that cars can have a personality. Cars can be something you enjoy to drive. And do you remember that sort of flowery 60s, you know, touring summer music that they would play as they're driving along? And, you know, you have that in your mind when you look at Herbie. You can't find a Volkswagen Beetle offensive in any way, shape or form because of that movie.
And, you know, the cool thing is Beetles have always been like, to non-Beetle people, they're like, you know, bloody Volkswagen. But if you've been in a properly built Volkswagen with a mental engine in it, they are crazy and fun to go in. But the cool thing about that model Beetle, and I credit my good friend Aaron from 3R Technic Panel Shop. He's a Volkswagen tragic, and he's, I'd say, forcefully but unforcefully educated me over the years about what models and stuff like that. I actually owned a Beetle for a while there. I think mine was a 66 from memory, which I sort of got halfway through doing. But that particular model of Beetle from the movie was sort of in that era of not a oval window, but then in the nice sort of shape with a nice laid back headlights and all that sort of thing. But an easier one to get, probably lesser these days. But you know, you're not doing anything to an oval and stuff like that. So it was that sort of intermediate era. But the cool thing is like, no matter what Beetle you've got, I mean, even look, there's like a Super Beetle here. I pulled up a picture of on Google with the stripes on it in 53. I know John Kruger from Kruger Signs in Adelaide, Kruger Motors, the iconic Adelaide Volkswagen family. Rest in peace, his dad Garner, who was the guy that started it all and made all of his kids Volkswagen tragics. They had a really a hotted up Beetle with all the Herbie stripes on it and everything like that. But I mean, you go through the generations, there's probably been, I would argue, the fact that more Herbie replicas built than any other movie cars over the years. And then when they came back and did the movie with the Disney one, fully loaded, where it did all of the typical old school Herbie antics and that sort of stuff.
The ultimate incarnation of the NASCAR spec one, that was a cool looking bug.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, in that movie, they went back to using an original Beetle. They didn't go making a new Beetle and putting
they pulled the rocker cover off the new one. Anyway, that's another thing. Quick shout out. I don't reckon he's watching the podcast, but quick shout out to Ferdinand Porsche for making the Volkswagen Beetle. Well done, mate. Awesome. Hats off to you. Let's go on to, we've got a couple left. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great Scott! It is, of course, the 1981 DeLorean DMC-12 from Back to the Future. Woo! He is frothing, isn't he? He's
so
frothing.
we'll just turn our mics off now and over to you, Rory.
Oh, crikey. Well, I brought in another one of these. I have a much bigger one. There you go. Take a look there. It does have... It's not completely screen accurate, but it's not bad. It's for a Matchbox car.
Well, there was throughout the three movies and... fingers crossed, Parkinson's aside and stuff like that, that eventually we will get a Back to the Future 4. Because it'll be a box office sellout.
They say it'll never happen. They've
times
sworn it will never
1,000.
happen. Maybe a remake, but I doubt a part 4.
Oh, you know what? You know what'll probably happen? There'll be a YouTube original series like The Karate Kid.
I actually would.
Cobra
I would watch
Kai.
that.
Oh, I would binge watch the hell out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, and this is part of the whole thing with Rory. Like, we showed his 88 tattoo with the lightning bolt and stuff like that on it. He is the guy that goes to the Comic-Con events dressed as Marty McFly.
Oh, well, look, you know what? We can talk about the car. It's aluminium, it was built by John DeLorean. He was involved in drugs. He was from, it was Irish. He was. They're now reassembling the cars. They're getting them back again. We've got like 9 in Adelaide at the moment. Everybody's seen one. There's a lot of them around the place. And much like Ecto 1, you can't do anything with a DeLorean apart from turn it into a replica, realistically. No. And there's 2 types of replicas. There's, 1, 2, and 3 and stuff like that. But you know what? Just humour us. Give us some of the lines from the movies, some of the classic, iconic lines.
From the movies.
From the movie. And try and say them in character. Go on.
Ah, man. Well, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, You're going to see some serious.
I like that one.
Apparently, that car didn't actually even go to 88.
No, wouldn't be surprised.
If you've watched Back to the Future enough times, and I actually saw it at the movies.
Yeah.
In 1985 in Sydney with my family. I was the youngest of 5 kids. We were on a dad's work trip where he took the whole family with, and we went and saw it at the cinema. And I reckon I've probably watched it about 1 billion times since, and it never gets old.
You know, just something's just occurred to me, and when you think about it, the great movie cars of the great movies, there was 3 characters, and it's almost as though somebody's gone, if you're going to do a movie with a car in it, there can only be 2 lead actors, and the car's the 3rd actor. Like you think about the Blues Brothers, for some reason, sort of like Ghostbusters. It's the car is an additional character in the movie, and they bill it as such. Like it's on the movie poster. It's in the major scenes, and you know this vehicle. I mean, this was back in the 80s. We saw a car fly. We saw people talk about, you know, the 2000 era that we're living in now, about how we're going to have, you know, glasses that look weird and Mr. Fusion systems on the back, and you know we're going to have, you know, energy systems on cars. Well, look what we have now. Have hoverboards and all this sort of stuff, and it gave us a segue to the future where we wanted to live there. We wanted to get there, as opposed to saying, "Oh, we're going to get old or hate life."
Roll back a few years before smartphones existed, when we all had Nokias and stuff like that. If somebody showed you a phone, we could touch a screen and do all that stuff. We'd be like, "That's never going to happen."
I know.
Like looking at the DeLorean from that movie, I would say that if that movie didn't exist, the DeLorean would just be a piece of history now. And strangely enough, a side story involving DeLoreans for me was I had a car trailer I bought. And you're probably thinking, what? So I bought this car trailer, and for some reason somebody had put Volvo stud pattern on it, and I needed a spare wheel for it. So I found a Volvo workshop in Sydney, in Milpera, I think. And I've gone there, and I've walked in the door, and I'm like, holy crap, there's like 8 DeLoreans in here.
8?
Yeah, because they're a Volvo engine.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, from memory, I think Volvo 5-cylinder or something like that.
They were.
Yeah, and
you get a V6 one as well.
Yeah, basically this guy was just lumped with all this DeLorean work because he's got all the parts and the know-how for those engines. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of them in there. I'm like, this is cool. And I'm like, I still need a spare wheel. So I ended up getting my spare wheel and going away from that as more of an experience and just going to a workshop to pick up a wheel.
1991. I'm just, as you are, walking on a street in San Francisco with my father, and I'm 16 years old, with my younger brother as well. We're over in America, and we were walking on a street in San Francisco, one of the up and down ones, and I'm standing there, and I stopped, and Dad goes, what are you doing? I go, Dad, it's a DeLorean. And a DeLorean drives past. First time I'd ever seen one in the flesh. And there was some dude, you know, like straight out of Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, Greed is Good, and he's in his car driving along with his freaking shiny suit. And I remember
cellular telephone.
I'm looking at it going, that is a freaking DeLorean. It was the most glorious thing I'd ever seen. Let's go, guys. We've got a couple more to get through.
Oh, you know, I sat in the actual one from the movie when they brought it out on a tour to Australia.
Wow.
When I was about like 10 or so, 10 or 11 when it came out for the part 2.
You still got those jeans?
Well, I have the photos because I went photo crazy. Oh,
Can we get that? Can we get the photo for this? We'll have to find the photo.
I'll find the photos.
Find the photo and include it. Let's go to a couple more left to go. A car that is cool for a lot of reasons, which we'll talk about, but one I personally can't stand. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the customised Paragon Panther from that movie where more people sing. Yay.
And I think you made the point, though, probably one of the earliest custom-built cars for a movie.
That's the only credibility I give it.
I don't really know a lot about this, aside from the fact Dick Van Dyke, who was the man that drove the car in the movie, doing a lot of singing and dancing and stuff like that. Very upbeat kind of guy, like Rory. Don't sing, Rory. My personal experience with this car, I don't know if it was the original one or not, Bewley in Southampton.
Bueller.
No, Bewley. Well, and it's not spelt that way, but there's a museum down there I went to a few years back, and it was basically perched up in the middle, like it was flying. Had the
I know
wings
there's
out
a lot of
and everything like
replicas. There's a lot of replicas of the car, and there's only one, a real one, and it's sold for stupid money. I don't know why. I recognise it as being a customised vehicle, and a lot of people look at it, and they've got a lot of great memories about that show. As a car guy, it's not up there with one of my favourites, but it is iconic and it is recognised. And on that note, we're going to spend the last moments of this podcast not talking about that. old piece of junk. We're going to talk about one of the most iconic standard vehicles that when it appears in front of you, you'll know that it just means Bond, James Bond, the Aston Martin DB5. What a sensational car. It was driven, in the early days by Sean Connery. It was later pulled out by Pierce Brosnan and also Daniel Craig got to wheel it around before it got blown up in Skyfall, and it's now being rebuilt in the movie series. That vehicle, I'm going to say...
They also have that in the museum in London?
That has to be responsible for the continuing growth and popularity of European classic cars, because not everybody can own a DB5 purely because there's hardly any of them.
Well, I mean, the thing is that any Aston Martin is worth money. Like, they are not a car that's ever going to go down in value. Like, even if you've got the
maybe
worst
the
model,
Signet.
it's still an Aston Martin. It's like a Maserati. Like, you get your cheaper oddball ones, but they are still an
Ferrari.
iconic.
It's like a Lamborghini.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It's but one of them now, I've no idea what one of them would be worth. Especially an original Bond one, it probably would never be for sale.
It wouldn't. Yeah.
I saw one actually, 4 young chaps, and I say that I went to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and just happened to park the what was it, Infinity bloody turbo hatchback thing I was driving in the big open paddock car park there, in amongst all sorts of exotics and stuff like that, and then there's 4 young chaps roll up in a DB5.
Yeah, right.
And just hop out like it was just dudes in their 30s, all dressed to the nines, and I was like, "That's cool. That's very cool."
James Bond movies, Batman movies, Iron Man, Marvel movies. They've all got these smatterings of different cars through them, and you can pick 1 or 2 for this podcast. That DB5, every time it appears, it has its own persona. And I think a truly great, iconic movie car has to have a persona where when people see it, they're watching the movie like this, and then they kind of lean forward a little bit going, hey, hang on a second, something good's going to happen here. When the Charger comes around from Fast and Furious, they go, yeah, you're not going to drive this slow. What's going to happen on the DB5? Is the bulletproof shield going to pop up? Is the rockets going to come out? Is the ejector seat going to happen? I love the car for a number of different reasons, but... what I probably like the most about it, and I propose to you guys, is those iconic still shots that they use for the movie promotion. There's one sitting on the Glencoe Road with Daniel Craig leaning against it, looking down the Highlands. I've been on that road. When I lived in Scotland, I went on that road many times. If I could pick a car to drive that road, it would be the DB5. Not because just because the car is a grand touring car, a GT car, it's suited to that. So I think for selection for the movie, Mark, for James Bond, they did not get it any better than the Aston Martin brand.
Mm.
And the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car was also designed by Ian Fleming.
Don't even mention that in the same
It's Ian
word.
Fleming, the same guy, created both cars.
No. I'm sure that's a fact, but don't talk about that.
No, that's why we've got you here, though, Rory.
Did you say Shitty Shitty Bang Bang?
It's a classic.
Chitty Bang Bang. Sorry.
Chitty Bang Bang.
I hate that freaking car.
Love that car.
So I think we've got through our list of 20 now, and we have discussed that we are going to come back and do a lesser known movie cars thing. But I've got a couple of cars here that
I've got a few quickly.
Honourable
mentions.
So a couple of honourable mentions, which I think one of them was a TV series, but they did do a movie, Knight Rider.
Yep.
From an earlier podcast.
Yeah.
Really more of a TV car.
Okay, Michael.
But they did do 2008.
Are we going to McDonald's, Michael?
Did a movie. Yeah. Enough of that.
Small screen movie.
Okay. How about this one? How about these apples? Because there was a couple of cool cars in this movie.
Go.
The Condor Man, which was based around what was it? It was a 1972 Sterling Nova, which for Aussies is very similar to a Purvis Eureka.
Yes. Sounds a little bit like Hardcastle and McCormick.
And it was yellow. It turned into a hovercraft, had jets, had a ramping jump thing over the front for people coming the other way to crash and burn off. Had machine guns, all sorts of stuff like that. It also disguised as an old school camper van.
Oh, okay.
It had everything a movie.
Is that
like
the best you got?
It was like they literally went, "What can we do to this car? Here's the list. Okay, we'll do all of that." And it's inspired me to go, you know what, I really want to watch, because it was a very off-the-wall superhero type thing. But the other thing is for your Euro tragics from memory, the bad guy cars. You remember what they were?
They were Mercedes-Benzes, weren't they?
No. Porsches.
Oh, okay.
The black ones.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you my top 5. The Mad Max Coupe, right? It just made a massive impression on me. That's that car. The Dom Toretto Charger, black, made a massive impression on me. And here they are. They start to get a bit weird after that. My science project, the orange GTO. That car made a huge impression on me.
It was a good scene where they're driving down the road real fast.
Correct,
and
to beat
lightning.
the electricity, right? Yeah. The 1977 yellow Camaro from Wraith, the movie Wraith. And the 1973 Thunderbird, the bad guy's car from the movie The Crow.
Oh, good choice.
Those 5 cars have one thing in common. They have a supercharger through the bonnet, and the superchargers were running. And for me, if you're going to have a movie car, you want to freak people out, and they go, what is that hanging out of the bonnet? It's a supercharger. You educated people very quickly. And at the time, all of those movies, if you saw a supercharged car kicking around the road, you were like, that's a serious car. So to me, watching, I was impressed by anything with a blower out of the bonnet. And I go back to the Wraith. When the Camaro rocks up next to the Wraith, and it's got some V6 freaking rear-wheel drive, plastic fantastic, there's no way he's going to beat that Camaro. I don't care if he's got supernatural powers. That thing had a blower out it, had a set of 650 Hollies on top. That thing was going to dominate. Anyway, it is what it is.
And I've got a couple of other wild ones here as well.
That Crow car had lights underneath it as well,
correct.
Which was super cool.
Yes,
and I'd never even seen in a movie before.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing. So 2 actors, famous actors. Mark Hamill.
Yes.
What's he famous for?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay. So what came out before Star Wars?
Corvette Summer.
Yes. Corvette Summer.
Where was that car designed? And where does it live now? On the Gold Coast.
Well, what was the school?
Rydal High?
No, that was Greece, mate.
Van
Nuys.
Yep.
Which is, I think, was also the
yes.
where they based part of World's Fastest Indian as well.
Correct.
Yeah, so basically Hollywood. Yep. But yeah, that crazy hot-rodded Corvette that got stolen and rebirthed and all sorts of that. Cool movie, love watching it. And that was before Star Wars. But I think the story I got told or read somewhere was that they actually... Star Wars was going to go big, so they held off on that movie and then released it after Star Wars, hoping to catch a hold of that. But
there's a lot of custom cars in that movie, if you look closely.
I'm looking at Rory here. Michael J. Fox, another car-related movie, car-involved movie with Michael J. Fox that came out before Back to the Future.
Before Back to the Future.
Yeah. No Googling. And this is one for the car people and the engine conversion nerds.
Secret of my success. I don't know.
No.
Teen Wolf.
No.
Mark was a stunt double in Teen Wolf.
No. I'm a movie called High School USA.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
No.
Storyline went along the lines of the high school jocks had a Trans Am. And Michael J. Fox was like one of the nerds, and there's some argument that ended up in let's have a drag race. So what they did was they got some, I think it was a convertible, big ugly American car, and they put a bus engine in it.
Yeah, right.
And
good luck.
Yeah, they put a bus engine in it, and then it was I'll have to track down.
Well,
how do they always give the assholes the Trans Ams? You notice that more often than not. If there's a character in a movie,
except for Burt Reynolds.
Apart from Burt.
We could talk about things like a whole range of movies out there. American Graffiti, Two Lane Blacktop. There's lots of different car movies we can talk about. But today was about 20 iconic cars that turn your heads. And you can talk about Two Lane Blacktop with a 55 gasser, but then you talk about Herbie.
Cannonball Run.
Cannonball
you guys
Run.
have forgotten the Death Proof car.
Yeah, but even let's take Death Proof and put it next to Christine. It just puts Death Proof over there in the corner. The cars are movies are good.
That was the modern day Mad Max. Kurt Russell.
And I'm going to tell you guys, I think the most iconic movie car never featured, never anybody's made anything special about it, is the yellow New York cab. Has featured probably in more movies than any other movie of ever.
It's on my list. I had it, but it was the Fifth Element version of the cab that can fly.
Lulu Dallas. Yeah.
Multipass.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bottom line is these were the iconic cars, not the top. But I do believe we've got enough gas in the tank to do an alternative, lesser known movie cars.
There's hundreds. Like we had a quick
let's do a podcast of 20.
talk about this over the phone. Michael J. Fox's Toyota Hilux,
The black,
Marty
the
McFly.
black one, yeah.
What are you, chicken?
Yeah.
What was Needles
That
driving?
car is hot.
Needle driving an F-150 and it was red, and he nearly hit the what's the name, the Rolls Royce.
And who was Needles?
Needles was the is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Anthony Kiedis is a big Harley Davidson rider. We could talk about motorbikes in movies. Motorbikes,
Easy
iconic
Rider.
motorbikes.
Easy Rider, Great Escape. The
Tron.
movie that
Tron, of course.
Yeah,
Biker Boys.
yeah, absolutely. There's so much cool stuff.
Talk. The movie
There's so
should never
many
been
cool
made.
stuff. You know, I think movies are a great segue for people to understand car culture. And when you listen to the Hoonatics, we're all about cars. We're brought up on it. And on that note, I believe the episode is done.
Yeah, and so, we haven't picked a top car. We haven't picked a top 20.
Don't need to.
But, that's cool because anything we haven't talked about, especially on the YouTube video of this, there's a comment section below. Tell us what you think your favourite movie car was and ones that we haven't mentioned, because there is so many, and undoubtedly there's going to be so many more
to come.
Just bring to memory Minority Report and other cars like that. But so many cool cars.
It is. It's been awesome having you, Paul Schaefer. Thank you very much for your special comments.
Thank you for having me guesting on your show.
And while we're here, as we wrap up, we'll close this before we go to the closer. Rory here, our producer, the man behind, him and his partner Sandy behind Podbooth, this amazing facility we've been using. Very cool setup.
I like it, it's dark.
Check out Podbooth on Facebook and podbooth.com.au if you are in Adelaide and you're a business and you want to get into podcasting. If you know about podcasting, great. If you don't know anything about podcasting but you're interested, speak to Rory. He will tell you everything you never knew about podcasting and then some. It's been so cool for us because us being newbies to all this as well.
Get down here. You don't need an accent. You don't need a funny line. Come down and promote your business. Set up a podcast on a regular basis and tell people about what you do. Tell us stories about what you do. This is South Australia and Adelaide, and the world wants to know what's going on in this state. And Marty McFly over there can hook you up, get you sorted out. There's room for 4 and some. Come down and have some fun.
Yeah, do what we're not doing. Is that what Rory says is to entertain and educate people. We just talk a lot of crap
and have stupid accents.
Podbooth.com.au.
Insert the closer here.
Get in, buckle up, and come for a ride with the Hoonatics. Cars, bikes, and anything else with an engine in it. Let's go.